Well, welcome back. In this third episode exploring the birth and evolution of Orange County's most populous beach city, we take another fascinating peek back in time, utilizing some amazing historic photographs preserved by some of Huntington Beach's pioneer families, as well as local historical societies, academic institutions, and assorted archives. Like my other videos in this series, I've colorized and enhanced each of the following historic images, not to alter the past, but to bring them to life, so we can see Huntington Beach the way its earliest residents once did. No disrespect intended to the original photographers. The area's first inhabitants, the Tongva, lived along the shores of what is now Huntington Beach for thousands of years. Here are some of their southern relatives, the Luiseno, taken at Mission San Luis Rey in 1895. Tragically, colonization and disease brought by the early explorers nearly wiped out most of the indigenous people over the next 2 centuries. Up until the turn of the 20th century, most of Orange County was still used for grazing, both cattle and sheep. This shot was taken about 1900 on what is now Beach Boulevard. Quite a menagerie of farm animals. They must be showing off their stock. Agriculture soon reigned supreme across Southern California. Here is a 6-horse team of horses hauling a load of hay somewhere near the current border of Huntington Beach and Fountain Valley. This was merely the first of many cultural and societal changes that would sweep across Orange County as people flooded west by design. First referred to as Shell Beach and then by Pacific City before railroad magnate Henry Huntington hit the scene, in 1903 the residents began referring to the growing village as Huntington Beach, becoming official in 1909 when the city finally incorporated. Soon after extending his Pacific Electric red car service south to Huntington Beach, the Huntington Beach Company built the first pier. This shot must have been taken a couple years later after the dance pavilion, seen on the left side of the pier, was built in 1906. On a side note, keep your eyes on the number of people wearing hats. It seemed that no trip to the beach was complete without one. This is one of my favorite shots, looking down Main Street towards the pier. With all of the red, white, and blue banners and flags, I'm guessing it is either the 4th of July or Armistice Day on November 11th. What do you think the sign above the kid's head reads? Something House. One of Huntington Beach's biggest draws in the early days was a Methodist campground in Tent City. Spread across a 10-acre compound, it hosted events including Methodist Association conventions and revivals, Grand Army of the Republic conventions, Young Women's Christian Temperance Union rest cottages, and housing for tourist vacationers and potential land buyers. For indoor gatherings, they also constructed the Huntington Beach Methodist Auditorium. It could house almost 2,000 people, I suppose equivalent to today's convention centers. But just over 100 years ago, Huntington Beach's destiny changed forever. In December of 1919, Standard Oil struck black gold near Golden West and Clay Streets, pulling 70 barrels a day from the ground. But the real game changer came less than a year later. On November 6, 1920, Bolsa Chica No. 1 roared to life, an oil gusher that spewed an astonishing 1,742 barrels in a single day. The city had struck more than oil, it had struck a new identity. By the time this photo was taken in 1926, you can see the coastline was nothing but a 100-foot-tall forest of wooden derricks. As we pan south, you can see the inn nestled amongst the oil field. Although tourists wishing to enjoy the beautiful ocean views may have decreased, the oil company was looking for every possible room for the thousands of oil workers pouring into the city. In this close-up, you can see several other small homes and structures dwarfed by the derrick. I remember driving through some of these oil fields and the ones in Long Beach and recall the area had a distinct petroleum scent. I can't imagine that helped tourism. These oil fields would eventually stretch to the northern boundaries of Huntington Beach, bordering on the other main employer in the area, farms, and in particular, orange groves. This must be wintertime. Check out the snow on the local mountains. By the 1930s, Main Beach still drew hordes of tourists wishing to visit the surf and sand. The Pacific Electric red cars provided a constant influx of visitors, and city leaders were cognizant about providing amenities for both the residents and visitors. This included the Plunge, seen on the right side of this photo. Built in 1912 and situated just north of the dance pavilion, this heated saltwater pool provided more than just recreation. Many homes at this time still lacked indoor plumbing. Let's just say the Plunge served a very practical purpose too. Opening in 1914, Huntington Beach's new reinforced concrete pier has continued to be a focal point for gatherings, concerts, and starting in the late 50s, surf contest. That tradition would eventually earn Huntington Beach its now famous nickname, Surf City, USA. But we'll get to that in a minute. These sunrooms were added when the pier was rebuilt and modified in 1930. At this time, they also extended the 1,330-foot-long concrete pier by adding a 500-foot wooden pier extension and topping it off with the Inn Cafe. After nearly a decade of drilling, local residents and oil companies began butting heads about access to the beach and the well-being of local residents. The influx of oil money led to rapid growth and development. However, it also created a clash between the oil industry and the city's aspirations as a tourist destination and beach town. Some property owners got far more than they bargained for. Before oil was discovered, an encyclopedia company gave away free parcels of land with the purchase of a whole set for $126. How many of you remember the opening scene of the Beverly Hillbillies? Even the local grammar school was not immune to the oil derricks. Many of the students attending this school were no doubt the children of workers employed in the oil fields. They were the major employer in Huntington Beach area for nearly 4 decades. Within a year of drilling the first oil well, the field had 59 wells producing a staggering 16,500 barrels of oil a day. By 2000, Huntington Beach had produced over 1 billion barrels of oil and 845 billion cubic feet of natural gas. Homes in the area that stood in the way of drilling equipment were physically relocated north, 6 miles to Midway City. Others moved to Sunset Beach, right up the coast. Completed in 1911 at Main and Garfield, the Hawley Sugar Factory was built at a cost of nearly $1 million. At the time, sugar beets were the major crop, and agriculture was still the major employer. When oil was discovered on the property, a portion of the factory was converted into a refinery by the Hawley Oil Company, a subsidiary of Hawley Sugar. The main buildings were eventually dismantled and sent to Wyoming in 1926 to be reused. With the discovery of oil, the population of Huntington Beach nearly tripled overnight, climbing from 1,500 to well over 5,000 residents. New businesses sprang up in an attempt to supply the growing needs of these new residents. Housing was scarce, and oil companies rented entire hotels and constructed camps for housing. Oil City was in full stride. Here is the new City Hall and Civic Center being constructed on Main Street in 1922. The new City Hall opened its doors in 1923 and served as Huntington Beach's official seat of government for 51 years. I believe the structure was demolished in 1974. Residents had several grocery stores to choose from. Here is Minnie Higgins at the local Alpha Beta in the early 1920s. Found at 218 Main Street, this store had quite a selection of fruits and vegetables. I can see a collection of canned foods in the distance. Also located on Main Street was a local liquor store. Although the date on this photo said 1930, I know Prohibition did not end until 1934. Besides beer, it looks like the store also served as a bakery. I guess it was kind of like a deli, maybe. Armistice Day, November 11, 1923. In 1954, Congress changed the name to Veterans Day to honor all American veterans, both living and deceased, from all wars and conflicts, not just World War I. Quite a crowd on Main Street. Here's another shot in 1924 of the Armistice Day Parade. Seen riding in formation is the Orange County Riding Club. This last year, the city conducted its 121st annual July 4th parade, the first being in 1904 to celebrate the arrival of the first electric passenger train connecting the area to Los Angeles and Long Beach. To honor one of the city's original pioneers, Mary Juanita Newland was chosen as Grand Marshal for the 1924 July 4th parade. Their home, now the Newland House Museum, was constructed in 1898 and is the oldest existing residence in Huntington Beach. I'm not sure the backstory of this photo, but it said it was taken in 1924. I'm guessing this may have been a float in the parade. Quite a backdrop of oil derricks. Friction between city leaders wishing to enjoy this seaside resort and the oil company were impossible to ignore. Even a century ago, politics could be a bit messy, to say the least. In 1924, the Ku Klux Klan had infiltrated a number of local cities, holding positions in local government, law enforcement, and civic organizations. That same year, Huntington Beach made the headlines when a KKK float was banned from the annual Huntington Beach 4th of July parade. The reign was short-lived, and recall elections in Orange County removed any elected officials with ties to the Ku Klux Klan. Here is a shot of the local municipal band posing with local Klan members. When I first saw this photo, I was shocked. I just couldn't quite picture the Klan in Southern California. A chilling reminder that history isn't always as distant as we imagine. It's important we learn from it, not erase it. In 1928, Samuel Bowen was elected mayor, with residents demanding a cleaner, more attractive community. Bowen is quoted saying, "Our ultimate destiny is to be a city, not an oil field." He began by installing the gateway arches placed at Main Street and the pier. Bowen also negotiated with Standard Oil to construct a municipal golf course, instituted a program for street paving and lighting, lengthening the pier, and led the city's efforts to secure more beachfront property. If you travel along Beach Boulevard in the early 30s towards Fountain Valley, you would still be surrounded by farmland. The housing boom was still a couple decades away. This 2-lane highway is now a busy 8-lane highway. After George Freeth's surfing demonstration during the dedication ceremony of the new concrete pier in 1914, surfers continued to flock to Huntington Beach for the waves. Here are two surfers, probably around 1940, riding what looks like finless planks or kook boxes. Hawaiian-born Duke Kahanamoko, considered the father of modern-day surfing, visited and surfed at Huntington Beach in 1925. Unfortunately, there are no photos documenting this event. In 1918, the city of Huntington Beach hired its first part-time lifeguards, Henry Brooks and Robert Nutt. By 1931, with an increasing beach crowd, the city hired its first full-time lifeguards, Delbert Bud Higgins and Gene Belshie. Beauty contests were a big thing in the 1930s and drew huge crowds. Here is a group of contestants in 1931. It appears that the young lady in the middle of the pack is holding some sort of trophy, with the girls on either side holding ribbons. I'm assuming they're the winners. Here are a group of city leaders in 1939 promoting the various sporting activities available in Huntington Beach. They included skeet shooting, a rifle club, golf, bowling, surfing, fly casting, and archery, to name a few. In the early 1900s, Charles and Yukiko Furuta immigrated from their home in Hiroshima, Japan, and settled in an area originally known as Wintersburg. In 1912, Charles purchased 5 acres of land, where he and his wife built their house and farm you see here. Within months of settling into their home, the California Alien Land Law of 1913 was passed, which prohibited immigrants ineligible for citizenship from owning property. Regardless of these discriminatory laws, Wintersburg became a small Japanese immigrant farming community with an estimated 300 Japanese immigrants calling Wintersburg home. With the help of Charles Furuta, the Wintersburg Japanese Mission and Manse were constructed on a parcel, which he eventually deeded to the church in 1912. This church is the oldest Japanese house of worship of any denomination in Orange County. Here are Charles and Yukiko with their horse and carriage in 1913. In an interview conducted in the 80s, Yukiko recalled that Charles didn't purchase their first automobile until 1916, a Chevy, by the way. She shared that she was scared to ride in it. The street was not well paved, and they could drive only 20 to 25 miles an hour. Have you ever wondered why koi and goldfish ponds became such a lasting feature in Orange County landscapes? The answer may lie in Wintersburg. Though goldfish farming had centuries of tradition in Asia, it was still a relatively new concept in the United States. With the end of the 20s came the Great Depression. Although jobs were being lost around the Southland, Huntington Beach and its booming oil wells helped carry local residents through a very trying time. Here is a bustling Roosevelt Highway, later called the Pacific Coast Highway. Although the official opening date was in 1929, I believe this section was completed sometime around 1926. As the 30s were coming to an end and World War II edging ever closer, crowds still gathered at the pier to witness the annual Bathing Beauty contest. As you can see, Huntington was no stranger to huge crowds. You can see the ever-present oil derricks in the background. Oil City was thriving. Over the years, the Pacific Electric red cars made countless trips, ferrying passengers and vacationers to Huntington Beach, as well as countless growing cities around Los Angeles, Orange, Riverside, and San Bernardino counties. Both World Wars, an earthquake, the Spanish flu pandemic, as well as the Great Depression offered challenges to the Pacific Electric service over the years, but the Balboa Line, as it was called, remained operational all the way up until June 30th of 1950, when it made its last run. When highways and cars improved and gained in numbers, the red cars became obsolete. Here is a red car graveyard of sorts. It's hard to imagine the rapid development of Orange County at the turn of the century without Henry Huntington's Pacific Electric red cars. New communities actively courted Huntington to bring both electricity and the railway to their towns. In doing so, they granted Huntington significant real estate holdings in developing cities like Naples, Seal Beach, Huntington, Newport, and Redondo Beach. Boy, those tracks couldn't have been placed any closer to the beach, could they? In this aerial shot taken in 1951, you can see the recently completed parking areas for the Huntington Beach State Park. This area was gifted to the state in 1942 and officially became a California state beach in 1963. Check out the windswept Pacific Electric tracks running along west of the 4-lane Pacific Coast Highway. It looks like a small siding there. I wonder if that was a stop at one time. That may be Brookhurst intersecting with the Coast Highway there. And there is Huntington's iconic pier in the distance. Still a lot of open land at that time. Built in the 1920s, the Seabreeze Village initially offered cabins to rent for only $6.50 a week, camping for only $3.50 a week. This bungalow-style auto court offered everything a weary traveler or local could want. Eventually becoming a trailer park, it finally closed in 1950 for new beachfront development and the widening of the Coast Highway. By the end of the 1950s, the city's fire department and oil companies began cleaning up the old wooden derricks and began replacing them with steel pumping units. These would continue to line the beaches all the way up to the early 80s, when Chevron began selling off its downtown property. In this shot, taken in the early 70s, I think, you can still see the rails for Huntington's Pacific Railway paralleling the Coast Highway. You can see that by this time the bulk of the large derricks had been replaced with small pumping units known as pump jacks. They were also referred to as nodding donkeys, horsehead pumps, beam pumps, and oil horses, among other informal terms. You can still find these if you look for them. There are still 151 active oil wells in Huntington Beach today. With a strong focus on tourism and surfing, Huntington Beach has done a great job of rebranding itself as Surf City, USA. From a Tongva village, a Spanish land grant, a Mexican rancho to Shell Beach, Pacific City, the Gospel Swamp, Tin Can Beach, Huntington Beach has definitely evolved with the times. Keep in mind that this, like my other videos, is simply an attempt to bring to life these historical photographs and weave them together, along with a wee bit of local lore. I realize that I've barely scratched the surface when it comes to Huntington Beach's unique history. My hopes are that I might have piqued your curiosity a bit and encouraged you to dig a bit further on your own. I would like to thank the many local historians, historical societies, assorted photo archives, and Facebook sites that have provided the bulk of photographs and historical information about events, names, places, and dates I've included with this colorful peek back in time. If you're interested in the unique history of Huntington Beach and would like to know more, please consider becoming a member and donating to the Huntington Beach Historical Society. You can reach them at the link below. While I'm at it, I would also like to suggest you visit the Huntington Beach International Surfing Museum, as well as the Surfers Walk of Fame next time you visit Huntington Beach. It is now, of course, Surf City, USA. I am including a link to their website below. Well, again, thanks for watching. Aloha.